My name is Kana. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a membership clerk here with DoSpace. I'm actually in the building while we're not physically open to the public, but I get to present in the conference room with our really good internet. And you can still get our internet in the parking lot, by the way, if you didn't know that. So we're going to talk about some of the tools and then what we're going to be using them for. So the tools, we're going to be using search engines, databases, primarily Zotero for citation management. And then we're going to talk a little bit about cross-reference, which in this context really just means that we're taking a source, verifying it against another source to make sure that there's not bad information. So one thing with this workshop webinar today is it's not just for people who are pursuing it academically. This is perfectly fine for everyone, because I think everyone should have an idea of information literacy. And what we mean by that is you can sort of read information, consume information in a smart way, but also the information you're putting back out there, you are making sure you're vetting it, that it's accurate. And one way to do that is to actually just have the sources, like say you want to talk about something related to COVID or related to the libraries. You want to make sure you're using an accurate source so you can just cite that source, annotate it, have all your information. So that's one of the things I'm going to be talking about today is sort of the use you can do with Zotero, citation management, et cetera, that isn't strictly academic, because I think it's useful for everyone. I do have a Q&A question, and for some reason, my Q&A is not opening up. So if you want to repost that question into chat, I will answer it there. I don't know why my Q&A is not opening, but I do see there's a question in the Q&A. And give me just a moment. Okay. And then, but I do have my chat open. I can see that the Q&A, maybe let's just skip that for, okay. So my moderator told me what the question says. So it says, I am doing genealogical research and wondering if I can use this tool to compile and cite research I have to write and publish at some point. Yes, absolutely. So we can actually talk about genealogy, and I might refer you a little bit to the library. They actually have Ancestry Library Edition that you can get at home temporarily right now. And then there's other things. It's not as optimized for like genealogical data specifically, but let's say you have other types of sources, it'll work pretty well for that. But there's some other genealogical software, and there's a genealogy librarian at OPL, and I might refer you to them because they'll definitely have some great resources for you on that. And then I'm going to exit this presentation. I'm very minimalist when it comes to slides. I like to actually just show you what I'm doing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you what Zotero is. It's not the only tool we're going to be using today, but it's probably the most advanced tool. It's not as advanced as it is confusing to people just learning it, but once you sort of get used to it, it's not actually that complicated to use. It does have some advanced features that most folks can just ignore. A lot of those are really meant for like scientists, like academians who are publishing professionally. So a lot of those advanced tools are more meant for them. For our everyday users, we don't have to use all those tools or even worry about them too much. So I am on Zotero.org. So Zotero is open source and completely free. So you never pay for it. There's probably like options where you can pay to have a server, but I think you can get the online version without doing any of that. And it explains a little bit of what they do here. So it'll say they're a research assistant, and Zotero is a little bit different than other citation management options. That most of them, what they do is you put in your source, like a DOI from a research article or a news article, you just plug that link in, and then it will spit you out its best idea of what your citation should be in MLA, APA, et cetera. And that's what most citation management software does. It's pretty limited. Some of them will store those citations, but again, there's limitations to that, and really they're just storing the citation. Zotero does a few extra things that make it really popular for academics. Additionally, it's open source and free, so it's popular for that reason. And I would say Zotero was not the most popular program for citation management and sort of research in this way maybe 5 years ago, but right now it probably is the most popular free tool out there. So there's also like RefWorks, RefMe, BibMe. Zotero is much better than that. It is going to be a little more difficult for like younger kids to use because a lot of them just want that like citation that's properly formatted without having to think about it. But Zotero, like it does do those things, but it does some extra stuff. And it is available for Mac, Windows, and Linux. It actually works really well on Mac, and you can see that it's actually like showing what it looks like in Mac by default. And that's just because a lot of academics now use Macs. It's just, that's why they're promoting it like that. So it shows some of these new options. I have not actually used all their new options. They have these collaborative options that are newer. I have not used those before. I understand how they work. I just have never had the opportunity to use them. Yep, and then they're a nonprofit organization. They don't use your data or sell it. So then you go to download it. I'm not gonna actually download it because I've already had this installed. And then the Zotero connector, I actually already have this installed. So that's what this thing up here is. And if I click this, it is going to try to save it to a folder. We'll just save it there. I'm going to delete that in a moment anyways. But this is a cool thing if you have Chrome. I don't know if they have extensions additionally for Firefox or Safari or what's the Microsoft one called? Edge. Never have used Edge, but I'm sure that there are some kind of options. If they're not on Zotero's own website, there's probably plugins that do it. So this is Zotero right here. And I already have a folder. I have some sources in there. And you can see that the source that I was just on for this web page, it cited it as a web page. Now, certain sources like news articles, if you are on an academic article, this icon over here will actually change to what the type of thing it recognizes it as. It's not always accurate, but I would say it's more accurate than probably BibMe is. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and delete this source because we're not gonna use it. So before this webinar, I actually compiled all of the academic articles I could find that mention DoSpace in them. And there's probably more, but these were sort of a number that I could find. And it was more just so I could show this, how it looks when it actually has stuff in it. Now, one thing you might notice is that there are folders here. I don't have a secondary folder. I'm going to make one in a moment. But when you click My Library, it's every source. So you can have two different folders with the same source, and it's not actually going to create a duplicate source. You can just have it in your library. So actually, when I deleted that, I did not delete it from the library. I'm going to do that now. I only deleted it from the folder. So the folder, it's not a typical folder system. The folder system is more, it's more tagging it, and then it shows it in this folder, but it's not actually storing it in the folder. It's storing them in the library. And actually this source right here is written by our executive director, and it's promoting DoSpace in an academic journal. So the next thing we are going to move towards, and you might see my mouse move around a lot, it's because there's some Zoom tools that you don't see, but unfortunately I have to see constantly. So we're actually gonna go to Google Scholar. And we're not gonna just do scholarly sources, but I figured Google Scholar was a good place to start. And we're gonna actually search, say, 3D printing, and let's say, because we don't wanna get too sciencey because I won't understand it personally. So we're gonna say youth. So this is hopefully gonna say like stuff that's using 3D printing to promote to youth. That's what this first article is. So it says using robotics and 3D printing to introduce youth to computer science and electromechanical engineering. Those are big words, but that's kind of what I was hoping would pop up. So it's cool. So I'm actually gonna first make a folder here. I think you can make a folder from the icon itself, but we are going to create, actually this is new folder. We are going to say 3D printing youth. Okay, so this is a whole new folder. Now, you actually can see this icon has changed that I have in Chrome right now. So what I can do is I can click this, and it's going to create a whole collection just based off of how it's reading these sources. This is something you can do if you just have a lot of sources you want to get that you're not really going to review as you're doing it. It's not my best recommendation for this. I recommend actually looking at the sources, then adding them. But this is an option if you want to just grab a bunch of sources all from one page. Zotero does know how to do that on certain like scholarly databases and whatnot. But I'm actually going to click this, and I believe this isn't free. Like it'll let me open it without a paywall to help support. Okay. Now when I click it, it recognizes it as something different. So we're going to click this, and it may ask us a couple different things. So you're going to see this full text PDF. So this is going to come up with primarily academic articles with some other things. When it can pull the PDF, it will pull the PDF. If you're logged into the thing, or if it's open source and the PDFs are just free, and I can actually say which folder I want it into. When you put it in a folder, it's not restricted to that folder, so I can put it back into the DoSpace one if I want to. So I'm going to click done. So now I go over here and my source is here. I'm going to look at it. This actually looks all correct. So it imported it pretty well. So that's good. And if I look in DoSpace, I don't think any of these are about 3D printing, but if I had a 3D printing one, I could drag it, put it in this folder, and then it's in both folders, but it's not actually being duplicated. It's just tagged to both folders. I'm gonna actually make sure I pull up my chat just to see if there's any new chat. Okay, there's no new chat. You are welcome to submit new questions as you need. If you need me to slow down or go back, anything like that, you can just ask me. I'm not bothered by that. I'd rather try to be as helpful to all of you as I can. Okay. Ooh, don't know what I just clicked there. So most sources that you find in academic journals are going to be pretty accurate. Oh, I hate those pop-ups. So you don't usually need to vet them the same way that you need to vet some other sources. But I'm actually going to go to Snopes.com, and we're going to grab a couple different sources. And I'm going to, so a number of these could be fake. Some of them could be real. We're going to do 3D printing because we're just going to stick with our topic. We're going to see what things Snopes has for 3D printing. So anything that goes on Snopes are things that either are fake and are going viral on social media or the news, or they're things that people think might be fake, and Snopes verifies it that it is true or partially true, things like that. So let's do this 8th graders 3D print prosthetic limb for a duck, because that sounds like a fun one, and it's not really negative whether it's true or not. Okay, so ducks. And actually that goes back to the youth. See, it all works out. It all works out. So it should tell us, oh, this is actually a news thing. This isn't one of their searches. They changed this website since I did this. So I am actually looking for, this isn't working. Oh, fact checks, there we go. Because I only want the fact checks. I don't need anything else. Charging a user fee. So is Facebook charging user fee? I'm pretty sure this is going to say no. Let's see what it says. So there's usually this big, rating here, and it just says false. Now the cool thing about Snopes, and they didn't used to do this, is it'll have citations when appropriate. This one, I don't know. So it actually does have a few citations. So citing Facebook, And even though they don't have a sources list, it still counts as proper citation because they give you the exact time and then they say Facebook's announcement. So let's say I want to put this in because it's going to help me verify, like if I see someone on Facebook is saying like, Facebook is charging us a secret user fee, because there was some things that went around. I know my own grandmother like posted a viral thing about like, I will not be charged for this or something. So you can save this. And I am actually going to do more because I believe, okay, it's not going to let me put it in. So it's not going to let me make a new folder from here. So that might be a future feature. But I'm going to create a new collection, and we're just going to call it social media fact checking. So this isn't academic. This is just like you're on social media, you see someone post something and you're like, that seems sketchy. So we're just going to take the is Facebook charging a user fee, and we're going to put it in the social media fact checking. So when we see someone posting something like that and it's not true, we have this article on standby. We don't need to save it somewhere weird. We just have it ready here. And it doesn't have all these citation things like creator, whatnot, but it's also not as necessary if you just need the link. And you can also annotate it. So let's say, does this have a date on it? So May 22nd, 2000. Wait, that was published today. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So that was published today. I love that. I have seen this in the past, but I guess there's a new rumor going around. So, and it has our access date, but I don't believe this has the publication date. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. So May 22nd. And then creator, do we need it? We can add it if we want to. It's not completely necessary for our use here. But we have this author, and I think it'll replace, did it say Huberman? It did say Huberman. Great name. So we have, actually, I think I have that opposite, but it's easy to correct. So when you have a large thing like this, you'll start having more of a database that you search through. So let's say I just want something that has due space in the title. So it's not going to search for everything. So I only have one thing with due space in the title of it. And that's going to be the same article by our executive director. Let's say I was curious about 3D printing earlier. You can type in 3D. There are no items. One thing to note is sometimes with these snapshots or full text PDF, there is a way to make it search. Oh, I actually found it. So attachment content. I believe this is what I'm looking for. Let's say I want to add 3D there. Ooh. Now I should be able to search. So yeah, it's going to show this, and it was in the title, but it's also in the full text PDF. So these other ones may not have 3D printing in the snapshot, but they may not have a snapshot on it. So snapshot is actually going to take the text or the full PDF and pull it in. And if it has that, you are able to actually search for the words in it. So you basically created your own database for just the sources that you've downloaded to your computer. So I'm going to check in with everyone. Let me find my chat. Okay, so there's no new chats. Again, you can feel free to post whatever chat you would like to. And so another thing with sort of validating information, a resource other than Snopes or like websites, because sometimes you'll see a rumor that pops up and maybe it's about something local, like someone has a rumor about something Gene Stothert said or didn't say, something like that. Now you can always ask the mayor's office, but maybe you don't trust the mayor, whatever it is. We have librarians. Librarians, this is one of their things that they do. They can try to validate information for you. So let's say we want to go to Omaha Public Library. So they're a local library. And if you're in Bellevue, you have Bellevue Public Library. I don't know. I would imagine Ralston has a library of some kind. But just check with your local library. A lot of them will have access to looking up things. And I believe they have a chat. Oop, I saw virtual. Sorry, they actually changed a lot of stuff about their website since everything happened. So they have a contact us, and they should have a chat room that you can do. It's called, there we go, Ask OPL. That's what it is. So you can ask questions here. A lot of the questions here are actually going to be about the library, but you can submit any question. And I believe, I don't want to type something because I don't want to bother any of these librarians, because some of them will chat with you live. They have this text option. Additionally, UNMC library. So UNMC's library also has some resources available to the public that you can use, and they should have, let me see if I can find it. So they do have a chat here. You can use this start chat, or you can use this ask us at UNMC. And you can ask like health related questions. We actually had one of their health librarians speak on a webinar a number of weeks ago on a similar topic. And this is something where you could get some quality sources on a topic you're trying to figure out, whether you're trying to, like someone posted something on social media and you want to verify the truthfulness of it. And sometimes, and oftentimes the person who posted it isn't meaning to be like lying or isn't trying to misinform people, but they're just misinformed themselves, and they're taking that content they consumed and didn't really vet, and they're sharing it back out. Because it's really easy to share content without vetting. You just click share. And to vet it, you have to like look things up. Sometimes you'll like lose the spot. So I get why people don't do it, because it's an inconvenience to try to vet the sources. Facebook will try to sometimes have those little buttons you can click to vet sources. It doesn't always work super well. And sometimes it'll tell you something about a source that just isn't true. The other thing, and I was going to do this earlier, but I forgot about it. I was going to talk about Wikipedia. So Wikipedia is not a bad place to gather information. And this is really important. You should think of Wikipedia similar to the way we use Google Scholar or just any search engine, in that you don't think of the article you find as being entirely accurate. So I'm going to just look up DoSpace's article, and I'm pretty sure this article is more or less entirely accurate. There's a certain, I think there's some things with like wording in this article that probably isn't the best, or doesn't give people it might give people the wrong impression about certain things. And that happens a lot. We'll see all these numbers, and these are going to the actual sources that people use. If you see something said on a Wikipedia article and it doesn't have one of these numbers, you should probably ignore that line as being probably misinformation. It could be real, but if it was real, most Wikipedia authors are responsible enough to add a source. And if they didn't add a source, you should take that with a big grain of salt. The other thing is they may have a source that's accurate, but the way they actually wrote here is inaccurate. So this part, which I know is entirely accurate, could be different from the information we find in the source. Now, if we go to the source, it's going to be all that same information, but it's not accessible right now. So that's actually one thing. Wikipedia, when sources die, they have to, did Omaha Magazine stop? Interesting. So that's one thing. Wikipedia will usually try to make updates on when a source dies, especially digital sources. Interesting. I might look into that later. But I think a lot of people, so they go to high school or whatever, and then they're like, never use Wikipedia. Wikipedia is actually great. It sort of summarizes information for you. It's an encyclopedia. Paper encyclopedias themselves are not always accurate. They're often inaccurate about a lot of things. And there's a lot of things you have to sparse through. But it's going to give you sort of a general overview of something, and then it's going to have these sources. And honestly, sometimes these are the best places to get sources. Like using your search terms in databases like Google Scholar and whatnot is great. But oftentimes on like Wikipedia or other similar websites, they just have some of the better sources already available to you. And there is talks about like people who commit vandalism on Wikipedia. Wikipedia has actually gotten really good about just stopping that. Usually if someone vandalizes a page, a Wikipedia admin will disable that account within about usually 2 hours or so, depending on when the admins are available. And then they'll actually revert the changes. And if you've taken my Google Docs or Google Slides, Wikipedia does something pretty cool that Google does as well. I'm trying to figure out where it is. I think it's here. Nope. So there's a part on this page where I can find all versions of this page that have ever existed. And Wikipedia moved it because don't know why. Don't know why they moved it. Interesting. So usually it's somewhere up here where you can see multiple versions of the same page. They moved it, but if you ask me later, I'm actually going to look up what happened here, because typically you can find, so this page was last edited. It might be that they only let you see multiple versions if you log in with an account. It'll definitely let you do it then. I'm just not sure why it's not, because usually it'll let you click at any time and you can see its last edit. So this was edited as recently as May 20th. I would love to go in and see where that edit is, because what is so new? But we can also look at some of these recent sources, because these sources are going to be in order of being added to Wikipedia. So usually when someone makes an article, the sources are in order that they appear on the page. Wikipedia, these sources are in order that they were added to the page because it's a living document. So none of these articles are that new, but there could be new information about 3D printing. What is it? I need to know. I do this for my job. So I did want to check in again for chat or anyone. I don't have anything on Facebook if anyone had questions thus far. For the person who was asking about genealogy, so at DoSpace, we don't have like a Ancestry.com license or anyone who that I know of that specializes in genealogy. I've done some of it myself, but I wouldn't consider myself specializing enough to actually like tell you what to do. So I'm going to do OPL genealogy, and the genealogy librarian is typically associated with the what is it called? Yep, Dale Clark Library. Sorry, for some reason I could not remember the main library branch, but this is actually what I would recommend for the person who asked about genealogy. So I'm going to actually paste this in. And there's a genealogical librarian that you can get in contact with. Usually, I thought her information was actually on this page, but it may not be. But you can actually contact the genealogical librarian with genealogy questions. She is going to specialize in Douglas County information, stuff that's to Omaha, but she can help you sort of get started with other things. And if you're interested in like scholarly publication, that's where I would recommend Zotero. If you're interested in just raw genealogical data, I'd recommend some of these other websites. Can I save sources from Ancestry or Family Search? Yes. So let me think of a genealogy of a famous person. Who do I want to choose? Making choices, Warren Buffett. Don't know why I chose him. He's just the person we're going to go for. Library, yes. So Library of Congress sources should actually already be directly eligible to import because Zotero would already recognize. I'm wondering what Zotero is going to do with the genealogical source, because it could interpret it as something else. But let's say you want to find a source. Let's go to his page. And you want to find, so there's a number of sources here about him. So we're going to have these biographies and you can cite those. But as far as like genealogical data, so to me, genealogical data is any item that connects one person to another genealogically by kinship or by blood relation, things like that. That to me is what would be genealogical data. And I would really recommend a genealogical librarian. OPL does have one because it's not my specialty, but you can do these sources. You can put them all in Zotero. So if you want to, let's see, US Census. I don't know if Warren Buffett's old enough for me to access his census line. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be old enough. Nope, there's a census line. So I'm not actually on the actual record, but I'm pretty sure if you go to the actual record on Ancestry, there is a way to do this. There also might be, so if I do Ancestry, let's do Zotero, Ancestry.com. There's a lot of plugins that are designed for this type of citation. So this is probably an example of what I'm talking about. So organizing your family research with Zotero. So I'm going to post this in the chat as well for you because this might have a better explanation. This is probably a professional genealogist or a genealogical librarian, most likely, who's actually writing this article. So I would definitely recommend reading through that. And then there's another page here. I'm not going to probably post this forum because there's going to be a lot of random information. They're going to talk more about the specifics of using GEDCOM files. I actually know what these are. These are just the type of database that is most used for genealogical information. So rather than this stores your sources, this is just storing every nitpicky detail of genealogical data. And this is the file type. This is what Ancestry.com exports. I think most of these sites are going to export a GEDCOM file if you're able to download it all. And then, so this thing is just talking about how to import this into Zotero. I'm not going to read it right now, but you can search for that and find some things. So because it's open source, there's going to be all this plugins, a lot of people just figuring out how to use an open source product to do this. So open source rather than a paid source. So paid sources are usually more slow to update. Now, open source, they take a long time to get to a point where they're updating frequently, but they're quicker to innovate is what open source is really known for, is they're a lot quicker to innovate, but they can sometimes be buggier. Zotero is not very buggy because there's a nonprofit. It's decently funded for what it is, and there's a huge user base that is freely donating their labor and time to making Zotero awesome. So those are some really good open source options to use. So I'm going to get out of Warren Buffett's business. And other librarians you can look at. So UNO also has librarians. I don't know what their limitations are for use by the general public, but I'm assuming if their librarians are not able to help you, they'll just refer you to another librarian that can. But they're a local academic library. MCC also has a library, and I think they have virtual services right now, if I remember correctly. But, oh yeah, MCC does not have a separate library page. I forget about that. They deserve it. Their librarians work really hard, so they deserve their own page just for the library. So yeah, they have an Ask a Librarian feature as well. So it's going to be primarily for MCC students. You might still be able to ask a question, maybe not, but I think if you call them, they'll at least refer you. If they're not able to answer it, they'll definitely find someone who can. So yeah, are there any other questions from folks? I know this was pretty short. I just wanted to sort of get people introduced to what Zotero does. And I'm actually, I just realized I didn't do this the first time. I'm going to show you the way to import sources without using this add-on. I'm just so used to using it, I forget there's other ways to add a source. So I'm going to do laser cutting youth. I don't know if anything will, ooh, nope. We're going to get out of that. So we're going to go back to 3D printing youth. So again, you want to be mindful of your search terms because you'll get a lot of things that don't really make sense. Identifying a curricular hierarchy of activities. Again, a lot of these journals just use really big words, but it's not actually that complicated what they're doing. So I do have the option of doing this here, but the other thing I can do, so most of these pages are gonna say cite this article, or if you go in the URL, if it has something that says like 10 dot something, you can also copy and paste this. And that's actually the DOI for this article, but we're gonna just click this. So it gives you the citation right here. And this is just, I believe this is an APA, or actually no, this is an APA. What is this? I don't know what citation they're doing that in, but it's not APA. I think it's something similar to MLA, but I don't know why that's not a full name. But we're just gonna take the DOI. And this is usually the best thing. So you take it where it starts with this 10, which I believe all DOI codes start with 10, but I could be wrong. There's gonna be this little magic wand and you can click that. You can also do ISBNs, other things, and it imported it. It didn't import everything. I think if I would have done it from here, it would have gotten the abstract, but let's say I really want that abstract. I need that abstract. I'm just gonna copy and paste it. What is a DOI? So a DOI is just a string of numbers and sometimes letters that just goes to an academic article. It's just to make publication easier. And I'm actually going to, so digital object identifier system. So we'll just use the Wikipedia article. So this sort of explains it, but it's similar to an ISBN on a book or a universal product code, but a DOI is primarily for links. And it's not just academic articles, but it's used especially for academic articles. And at least for academic articles, I know they all start with 10. So yeah, they have, I don't know where this DOI goes, but we're gonna import it and it should give us something. That was not a real DOI. So yeah, if you get nothing, either the DOI is fake or it is incorrect, like it just gave you the wrong number. But yeah, every academic article that's published professionally is gonna have a DOI somewhere. So when you go into the citation or you click Cite Me, it's gonna have that. News articles aren't gonna have that, partially because news articles like to be able to delete content whenever they want. Academic articles are not allowed to do that. So like, let's say an academic piece, there was a typo. Legally, most of those publications are not gonna want to edit that correctly. So what they'll do is in the next issue of that academic journal, they'll just be like, there was this typo here, and they'll just have a submitted correction. But even when an academic journal retracts an article, they don't actually remove the DOI link because they have policies to not do it. They're just gonna change a bunch of things on that page that say this is retracted, this is not considered like suitable content or something like that. So that's what a DOI is. It's just a permanent link to usually academic articles, but I think it can be used for other items, but mostly academic articles. Okay. I don't think I had other items. So everyone, you can feel free to ask questions. Otherwise, we might end a little bit early, but that's okay. Because how long this was going to take was always going to depend on how many people showed up. So if you go to our Facebook, you can share what you're doing. So if you want to say like how a webinar has helped you or just want to talk to some folks at DoSpace, you can post on our page, share us, like our page. You can also see more webinars there and get up-to-date content. When we do reopen to the public, it will be posted on all of our social media. It'll go out in our newsletter. It'll probably be somewhere in the news. I don't know the specifics on that, but it will be publicly announced. And then if you have questions, you can email us at hello@dospace.org. So you can send any email there and we'll try to answer it to the best of our ability. Or you can go to dospace.org, our wonderful website, and then scroll all the way down. Oh, you don't actually have to scroll down. Sorry, I forget that you don't have to do that. There's going to be this little, I'm going to just move this so we can actually read it. So it says, we are here. I can click this. I'm going to get an automated message, but if I were to type here, there would be another staff member who would start responding to me. So you can get some tech help. You can ask questions about DoSpace, and we'll try to answer and assist you to the best of our ability. It doesn't just have to be about DoSpace. So let's say you had a question of like, hey, I'm trying to look for a source about 3D printing duck's limbs, because that was one of the Snopes articles we read. You can ask us about that and we'll try to help you to the best of our ability. If you're often asking about like learning something, we'll typically refer you to our webinars. If it's something that a staff member who is available at that time knows how to do and can assist you, they'll try to do that. So that's some of the services we have. And then we actually have a DoSpace Summer Kickoff coming up on, we're getting rid of that. So you'll see there's a lot of events happening that day. It's going to be really fun. But I really recommend looking this up. It's going to be fully online, as well as if you've been to DoSpace before, we have something called the Summer Passport and the Do List. Both of those are going to be fully digital. And I believe it's live. Let me try. Summer 2020. Yeah, okay, it is live. I was like, so this is going to talk about that Summer Passport and then the Do List. So it's all online now, but there's still, for youth, there's still prize options and stuff like that. So it's going to be really fun. So yeah, if anyone had any last minute questions, you can ask here, or you can send us something to us on our website or to hello@dospace.org. And I hope for those of you who stayed here, this was a good learning experience. If you have any additional questions about Zotero specifically, or sort of this process of finding sources, vetting sources, definitely ask questions to hello@dospace like right after this, because I'll keep a lookout on that and I can answer those more directly.